did you enjoy the coast? How did you like the coast? Have a good time?
I love it.
Great, great.
That's why I'm moving there.
You're now ready for a big move.
2 years, yeah.
Yeah, she's already packed up the light fixtures.
I noticed that too much.
Renos.
She's got the chandeliers. She get them all packed.
You know, parks person to come fix that for
No, I think it seems like a service.
you.
I don't know. If we're okay, I see that we're at 9 o'clock, so I'm going to call this meeting to order at 9 o'clock. I want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands. Lost my little page here. I'm sorry that we are acknowledge and respect the indigenous peoples within these traditional lands. We are meeting today. So we have before you an agenda that has been circulated. Is there any reorders or new business that should be on here that's missing? Anyone feels needs to happen?
You know how much that is.
Seeing none, can I have a mover?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Here, moved and seconded. Any objections? Seeing none. That's
recording in progress.
Oh, that was, thank you. I had a request from Mayor Morrison that if she was not able to attend, that we would record this for her so she could see the workshop discussion. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. We're just going to do it for internal distribution. Thanks, Jenna. For receipt of the minutes, you had minutes circulated from our January 28th meeting. Any amendments, additions, suggestions for those minutes? Seeing none, we'll move receipt of those. And we have no delegates today, and that takes us straight into the meat of our business today, which is our workshop planning for municipal grants and capital funding requests. And Tricia has produced a report for us, and I will hand it off to her to speak to the report before we enter into this discussion.
Perfect. Thank you. So in your, through the chair, so in our last meeting, I believe that was in January, if my memory is correct, the resolution that was passed was to direct staff to develop a workshop to deal with a process for municipal grant and capital funding requests. So in this report, what I've aimed to do is put together a framework of what that workshop could look like to make sure that it was on target with what the expectation of the workshop was. So in the framework, and I'll just walk through it quickly, and then we can have more discussion about it. So in the actual framework, the first part is just who would be included. So of course, in the actual resolution, it told us that, but just for clarity, for everyone's benefit, of course, everyone in the commission would be a part of this workshop. The RDCK staff that to me made sense were myself, Craig, Mark, Carrie, and then possibly finance representatives. I'm not sure exactly who that would be, if that would be Yev or another delegate for finance. And then of course, our municipal staff partners, so the City of Nelson and Salmo could identify representatives that they would also like to attend on behalf of the staff teams that they work with. So the objectives that I came up with for the workshop were three primarily. One was to ensure a shared understanding of the purpose, so to make sure we were actually all on the same page and could agree that that was what we were trying to achieve within this particular workshop. Identify the criteria that should be considered to support decision making, and identify the governance structure options based on the type of request. So in my mind, that could look different if it was an ongoing operational request versus a one-off capital request, or potentially ongoing capital commitments. Each of those may look different, potentially. I thought there might be value in doing an overview of existing practices. So where else within the RDCK operation does sort of a light process exist, and what might we be able to draw from to support decision making so that we weren't necessarily recreating something totally unique. So a couple of the things that came to mind for me was the prioritization framework that the Rec 5 Commission did about a year ago, I think it was. So I've included it as part of your attachment. But Rec 5 went through this process, as did the Crested Valley Services Committee. And actually they built their frameworks on prioritization off of each other. So that is in here just for everyone's benefit. And of course, some people in this group would have participated in that process, others would not have. We do have cost sharing agreements for some things within the RDCK. So there is one with Nelson to support parks operations. A like agreement, I don't know if they're exactly the same, but a like agreement does exist with the city of Castlegar for park operations in that city. So there could be some information within those agreements that might be important to bring forward. The RDCK has various grant programs, as I know many of you know, that also have criteria that might be valuable to consider as part of this process. And then of course we have the draft Parks, Trail and Water Access Strategy, which that working group is coming together quickly. I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but it's coming up. And so that document as well may also have information we want to pull from in order to support decision making. So to me, to actually paint that picture and say, what of this do we like? What aligns? What doesn't align? What types of pieces do you think might make sense, depending on where the categorization of the type of funding request, where that conversation goes, to me could be important.
May 5th.
May 5th, thank you. The next piece is identifying those differences between operational requests, so something that's ongoing versus one-time capital expenses, and to really understand what it is we're trying to achieve. Are we trying to deal with something for one of those particular categories? Is it something that we want? No, we want this to be a broad stroke criteria that we can kind of look at for any of those types of requests. Or is there reason for them to be different? I think there could be a conversation there, and just not knowing where the conversation goes, to me, was just an important flag. Then the next piece to me was governance considerations. So the difference between, oh, it looks like I didn't finish my sentence, my apologies. The difference between a contribution to a capital project compared to ongoing operational provision of funds may look different as to what the commission says. Well, if these requests come forward, is there an expectation that you then have a say in the actual operation or the capital project? Or is it more like a contribution service that I believe all of you have in various ways in your services, where you're simply providing funds to an agency and then you actually don't have any say over what that operation looks like. So to me, the governance consideration just might be one of those things to either get clear on what it is that expectation would be, depending on what those requests might look like. And then from all of that, the outcome of the workshop would be to try to decide what the next steps are as to how you would like to see this used. So to me, that would be the framework that would be important to sort of walk through and direct staff to sort of research and bring back as part of that workshop deliverable. And then the second part of this report simply is giving you the information on the prioritization work that was done within Nelson, just as a reminder that it does exist and you may find value in reviewing it. So maybe I'll leave it there and throw it open to the floor for chair.
Great. Do we have questions? We have Lockwood in the room. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Get started.
Through the chair to staff. Thank you for adding on number 5, the rest of that, because I was like, okay, so I have some and I'm going to use, we have a group that came that we've been supporting for $20,000, and then they came for $40,000 this year. So operational, although it becomes, I think that we really need to, in this working group, have an understanding that when we talk about economic impact, are we talking about our residents actually benefiting, or are we talking about businesses benefiting? So I understand that we want our businesses to benefit, although local government was not set up to make businesses benefit. And that's where I struggle when we give that kind of financial, is we're taking tax dollars away to make a group that has no direction from the local government of what they want to see. They're making their own direction, but we're just giving them tax dollars, to have that direction, whatever they want. And it's not maybe what the majority of the taxpayer wants. So how do we differentiate to make sure that we're not crossing that line, which is a very gray line, that it's beneficial for our residents, and the least thing it is beneficial for businesses? Because if it's beneficial for businesses, they should be going to chambers. They should be going to who is supposed to do economic development. Local government really isn't supposed to. We're supposed to give services, we're supposed to help. So I just want to make sure that we hone in on stuff like that, because it's a really easy line to step over, where we partnered with their cross-country ski to benefit residents. So we made that pathway for people that can't afford and be able to still do cross-country skiing, but it's not for an economic base for the cross-country ski club themselves. So I hope that I'm not all over the place with that.
So I think the conversation would be in the scope of a workshop.
Yeah.
Right now, the scope isn't including external organizations. It's just our municipal partners, given that we have these shared facilities that live both within the regional district and without.
Okay.
If that's just better clarity on this, I would probably say we stick to that scope. But we certainly a conversation we can have of whether or not we want to consider what external user group requests look like in the context of this. There is some relationship there, but maybe it would be easiest for us to chew off that tougher nut between partners at the moment. Is there an appetite to talk about things like cycling and Nordic and other external groups in this workshop?
I still think thank you. I still think it's a beneficial, because I'll use Salmo KP Park. We're looking at how do we make it that we need to redo the concession or that building, and how do we make it that if it's deemed a regional park, how do we make it that, where's that fine line between it being operational, making money off of it, to being a regional park that is open to more people? So I still think, I was just using those two things as an example, and I appreciate you bringing that up, but I still think that there's a value when we in a workshop can understand what that means between the operational and economic, because it still affects municipals.
Yeah, so are you comfortable in the context of the workshop just keeping that scope narrow to where it happens within the regional parks, where those capital versus operational questions lie, versus like a broader question about, so it sounds like you are. And I see Trisha taking some notes there. Cheryl, Tom, anything?
Tom's in the chat.
Oh, is he in the chat?
Yeah.
Newell, I see you.
Thanks. Could we start three things? One, I have to leave at 9:30. Two, because this meeting, we already had something scheduled and then this meeting came up. Fortunately, I could make it part of it. Number two, could you explain what actually this money is, what the criteria is, where it's come from, and then I'll have a follow-up after that.
This is lifted off of our January discussion where the City of Nelson was making a request for contributions to the bathhouse, capital improvements to the bathhouse at Lakeside. And we forestalled that conversation and budgets to this conversation about having a workshop around what policy do we want to develop as parks on when and why and where we would make a contribution to a regional regionally significant park within a municipality that we don't directly manage in our own portfolio. So that's what we're doing here. It isn't necessarily that it is a pot of money. It's our discussion about what our values are and our principles are when we would and when we would not make a contribution and why. And it came from you. You had made the suggestion that we do this legwork to come up with something more intellectually consistent. So I think I'm recalling correctly. Does that jive? I'm looking for the sparkle in your eye, Tom.
Yeah, no, that's correct. Just double checking that I wasn't confusing it with another pool of money coming in from another source that the parks need to divide up that we talked about at another meeting. So this is the workshop. Okay. Yeah.
This is
so,
the framing of the workshop. This isn't the workshop. This is the framing of the scope of the workshop, which could happen in the next month and a half, 2 months.
Right. Well, we're going to need a workshop to divide CBT money too, or something. So anyway, now that I'm clear on that, I think I'll leave. I think I'm okay with framing it like this. I guess my hesitation is that I believe the conversation will take on a life of its own as we enter the conversation, irrespective of how we overly structure it. I think it's going to come down. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Well, if I might riff off you, Tom, Christian brought this up in her preamble. That part of the conversation could be, is it a body of work to figure out this policy piece for the long term? And is that separate from consideration of the City of Nelson's specific request that gave birth to this conversation? Like, they can be two separate things. We could debate the merits on an ad hoc singular basis of the request on its own merits as we see them today, or we can develop a policy framework for now and the future that includes addressing that request. So we could separate them. Right now we're doing this policy work to inform how we answer that request.
Yeah, I'll just put it out that going into that workshop, I would need to know what community works funds the various parties are willing to contribute to the boathouse thingy, which is a capital project.
Bathhouse.
In lieu of taxation or whatever the building is that the 300,000, whatever you call it, whatever it's related to. I'd like to know what the City of Nelson's community works plans are, which would help us understand more clearly the potential taxation impacts vis-a-vis funding it through grants.
Yeah, the partner funding. You'd like to see the breakdown of the funding and where everyone's going to put in to make it happen. Yep, that's fair.
No, I want to know if the City of Nelson is thinking of putting any capital works or has available capital works funding to contribute. Specifically, City of Nelson, because it's their asset.
Yeah, completely. The City of Nelson
whether Area F would be willing to partner on that because of some aspect of RDCK usage, maybe, that type of thing.
Yeah. There's funds that have been allocated from the city side for sure.
Yeah, it's just I don't want to go into a workshop and then the city has to say, well, I don't know, we have to go back and reprioritize everything. Like, this is a pre-thing that might be valuable to bring to it.
Yeah. Noted.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Hands.
Sure, okay. Are we thinking of coming out of this with some kind of philosophy generally with regards to the kinds of capital works inside of municipalities at the regional parks? Because that's what we are technically. may wish to contribute to. Is that the kind of idea that we're looking for?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so this really isn't just a one-off, this is a general idea that this is the way we're going to do it.
Yeah, we were trying to
I
solve the
know,
problem long term.
Thank you, and I understand we have a half-assed kind of philosophy to that nature right now, but it isn't very effective because, I always go, it doesn't matter, I don't care. But it isn't very effective because, we don't have a real line that says, listen, we will all put in this much, or what the limits are, we just too vague, and maybe that's what a workshop has to do, to come in. If I walk out of the workshop saying, okay, now I'm happy, I know basically that 25% of the money going into the regional parks that we all throw in together should be going to the municipalities for interior works, that's fine, or whatever, just so we know where it is and how,
Yep. You've got it right. That's the goal.
Can we have the inverse of that too? Meaning, like, how much should the municipalities actually be contributing to the regional parks? Should they be contributing on the basis of use? Or because they are regional parks and people come and visit Nelson, how many of them end up at Tagum, for example, because they like to swim in the lake rather than a pool? I don't know any of that kind of thing. Again, these are philosophical discussions that I'd like to know.
We can make that clear, right?
I think so, through the chair. I think it's really, the clarity is going to come from the collective conversation and the collaboration of the whole group. It's not something I or staff will be able to bring forward and provide that clarity. It's really going to be this group helping to identify it. Really, to me, what I was trying to do was ground the workshop in things that already exist. So what are the things that you already have at your toolkit to be able to make decisions on these requests, or versus what might need to be elaborated on to help guide your decisions about whether, and just using the bathhouse as an example, a City of Nelson asset that requires attention, that how do you make a decision to decide whether it's appropriate to contribute funding and in what mechanism to that particular asset? And if not the bathhouse, what else might it be? Whether it's at Lakeside Park or any other venue that we may have a cost sharing agreement because someone decided at some point in time that there was regional significance to that venue, and so therefore funds are flowing from the regional district to the city to support that operation. But we don't have any governance component of that oversight.
So what I heard though from Hans was elaborating those financial pieces in terms of what contribution looks like from the individual taxpayers in the individual areas. And so I think from a finance perspective, we see reporting in the past that we could bring together for that workshop that says, this is how much we've made contribution from this pool of taxpayers to the regional parks at writ large. And this is the part that happens in the regional side that we've started to have these discussions about including. And then to your point, where is that limit? Where do we focus those around Lakeside versus, Nelson, obviously Nelson has a number of other parks that are not even into consideration. And that's, about firming up that policy boundary. But I think we can put down on a piece of paper how much money has been contributed from Nelson taxpayers towards the service and towards the capital improvements, and inversely what we're trying to attain is what is appropriate for the regional taxpayers to be making contributions to parks that don't fall within our direct influence.
Thank you, and if I may supplementary, is to repeat what the director from Salmo said.
Yeah.
And that is, what about some kind of control? Do we just contribute to money that, say, the municipality says, listen, we want to build a merry-go-round, how much will you throw in? Or is it in fact that we can also say, well, listen, we will put in this much this year, but that's it, a one-time thing? Or will we have any kind of control as to, well, we want a gold-plated merry-go-round now that we've started. And
and inverse, and the other way around too.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I think that needs to be thought about.
Yeah, I know.
We say those who pay play kind of thing.
I think that's right. So that's more that finance work of. I think that can happen. I'll talk to Yev about it.
Thank you, through the chair. Is it appropriate before this workshop that, because we're talking Salmo and Nelson, that we bring, yes, municipalities bring, so staff and the rest of the board can, or the rest of this commission can see the strategic plan of that park to have a better understanding. Because as Director Cunningham continued with mine, is that I know that there's been people in Area G that have pushed me for 7 years to put a spray park in KP Park. And that would fall on the taxpayers of Salmo, not on Salmo and Area G. And I would say, well, if we looked at making a service, no, we don't want to pay for it. Right? So I'm wondering if that would help in the conversation, is what is the strategic plan for the parks that are deemed regional in a municipality? How does that help our conversation? I'm just wondering if it helps a little bit in understanding for this commission of those boundaries of how much money can go into that. What is all of the taxpayers willing to pay for, right? Because that's what it comes down to. So does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
It does, and I think we can capture that for the workshop. Cheryl, sorry, I did not mean to skip over you, but I do see you in the chat now, so go ahead, please.
That's okay. Thank you. So through the chair and for me being the newest team member here, I think what would help me would be to have a understanding of like the current, how much we're currently contributing already. So I think I need to understand that in like it is confusing to me because you've got a city owned asset, be it Salmo, be it Nelson, that we're contributing to, I think, but I'm unclear on like how much we're contributing because I recall at one of our meetings, the city of Nelson came and said like we want a 2.5% increase for Lakeside Park. Okay, like we had this request. I think that actually got approved and went through with the budget, if my memory serves. Yeah. But like I don't understand this as a taxpayer and as an area director. Like I don't like, you know, how was that established? Like it seems like at this minute we're now asking that to be reconsidered. So, and so I don't even know where we currently stand. So, I mean, maybe I should be saving these questions for the workshop, but I think what would help me prepare for this workshop would be to have like a report, a financial report that would show like, okay, here's all, we already know we pay for all of the regional district parks. Fine. We're all paying for all of those because they're regional assets, right? But as far as these municipal assets, how they fit into this thing, like I don't understand how that was ever determined, since there apparently doesn't seem to be a policy. I guess it was just one day the commission said, yeah, we're going to pay this much. I'm not really, so anyway, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
There is some history there, yeah.
Yeah, so because I don't have the history, so I think like I would like to understand the history better. So maybe part of the agenda could be a refresher on how we got to where we are now and what is where we are now. And which parks are considered like regional? Because Nelson has a bunch of other parks, and like historically, what has happened when there has been an asset? Because to my mind, if the regional district is going to take on an asset, a capital asset, like that has to go to referendum, and the taxpayers has to say yes, I want to pay for this. So I'm finding this kind of confusing, that it's just would be decided here. And, because I don't have the history and I don't understand how this was all set up in the first place.
Okay, so that's what I wrote down, is financial history and some timelines from the different partners for this workshop. Does that capture that? And this is recorded, so maybe this will be something Yev can actually sit down and watch part of this. Not to commit him, but
like I am tempted to hold my questions for the workshop, but understanding that right now what we're just trying to do is set up what would be beneficial in the workshop. So I think for me anyway, I don't know, maybe you guys all
No, I think you're
know
great. I
everything?
think we're hearing a lot of finance questions.
Okay,
Um,
thanks.
So that's the signal I'm saying is that this finance side will need some beef. Lockwood.
Thank you, and yes, you and Keith are the newest ones at this table and haven't heard the years, of conversation. But what I do want us to remember is it's not just Salmo and Nelson, that Kokanee Park was part of that conversation that was added in, and also the Weimer Park was added in. So it's not just Salmo and Nelson, it's those other ones that are in that contribution. And it was hours and hours of debate of how we decided on the amount, and there was lots of documentation and stuff like that. So I'm sure if Tricia isn't able to make a really there is so much information under the park stuff. I think it would be under eScribe. I don't know some of the reports and stuff like that, but there is a lot more than just Salmo and Nelson in this whole thing.
So, can I have something?
Go ahead, Trish.
So just through the chair, so, Diana, you're hitting on something that we discovered as well, and in some cases, I could find with relative ease, some information that went back about 6 to 8 years ago, but I also could see that there was more, but I don't have it, and so therefore it's sitting, well, I'm hoping that it might sit through like records management, be able to find some of that history of even how the decision to land on a cost sharing agreement came to be, no, it does not exist, so you're saving me a whole bunch of time. Because even like the concept of how the cost sharing agreements came to be, I'm like, well, there must have been some conversation about why that was decided. Even to say that, yes, this park makes sense, but I couldn't find it. So I then started to go, well, if not that, what are these other things that we might have? And I could see the research component of even preparing for this workshop being significant. And so therefore, putting together the framework to say, where do you want us to direct our time? Because that, and then even just hearing that flag for me goes, even our thinking of dates in the next 2 months may not actually be reasonable. It might be something that we need more time to actually do a lot of digging, may even be talking to municipal partners and trying to find out some of that information, or if someone else has details, to even provide that context. Versus if it's really important to talk about the lake house bathhouse, lake house, bathhouse? Bathhouse, that, I have the movie in my head now, the lake house. But if the bathhouse is important, I mean, that could still be a separate conversation for you to debate and decide what, if anything, you may want to do within the context of the tools you currently do have. So that could be separate, and not to try to separate them, but it might be important if that conversation is important from the municipal partner side of things.
And
Greg, if you want some history, you could ask me. I've got 40 years worth.
Perfect.
I've been listening on all of these conversations in the past. That's why I've heard no. Yeah, and on top of that, one of the things we haven't mentioned yet is that we do have a new board coming on next year. And the elections are this fall, and we should have it'd be really nice if we could have something to give them when they first sit down at this table and say, here are the things, and this is the way in which it works. That was done for me way back in 1986, when I sat down and I said, listen, these are regional parks. These are the names and places where they're done. And then we had requests for other regional parks, and as you probably know, there's a whole list of them that's happened because and there was notationally around the lake, as you know, was land set aside for parks that are not parks, but they were set aside with the idea that maybe 50 years from 1986 to, or whatever, they will become parks, and some of them have. And so, and I don't want to say anything more because I'll be talking for the next hour and a half, and I don't want to go over the whole history, but if you have any particular questions, please do ask me. I do know, for example, about the things that about which we just made mention. I don't have the exact dates, I'm sure we can find them, but yes, I can simply tell you about how they discussed and what the discussions of the directors at that time.
for the sake of this workshop, I'm going to suggest we stick it to the municipal partner piece and flag the other external cost sharing agreements for other parks, Kokanee being referenced, and maybe a couple others as maybe follow-up work that would move us into next year. But maybe for the purposes of this workshop, we really need to haggle more about the principles and the values that have to do with municipal partners and potentially even unincorporated partners for community-based parks, as opposed to the whole. Like, I think if we crack the whole thing open, it starts to get quite complex quickly. Whereas I do think we can address those regionally significant parks within municipalities or within communities that we already have, a tacit understanding that we do make contributions, and figure out those principles. And what those internal controls are for budgets and why we make those decisions and what the principles over taxation on the city side versus the regional district side and which assets would or would not be included in that. I think we can make some positive effect on that work within the scope, but then it probably will flag some additional work that takes us into 2027 and 2028, and that'll be the purpose of the new board. But just to keep it to something we can accomplish, if that's, if the directors are amenable.
Last
Lockwood?
time I'll speak on it. The reason I brought that up is because those two were added at the same time and was a big part of the discussion continuously. So those four things they all started at the same time. So Kokanee was funded totally by Area E. They used to give $10,000 themselves.
Yeah.
And it got moved into this.
What were the other three?
Weimer, and that park is not a regional park because it's on the trail, and it's extra stuff that's been put on the trail. And then Salmo Nelson. That's why I mentioned the four.
I get it.
Is because those four happened all at the same time because of the conversation.
Okay.
So if you choose, Chair, not to have those, I get it, but that's why I mentioned them.
Okay. I appreciate that. Yeah. But we're good with keeping them a narrow scope and maybe flagging whatever comes from that for future work. That's okay. Okay. Graham, I see you in the chat. Go ahead.
So thank you through the chair. So I would still like to see the numbers in the report of what these
100%.
other two parks are getting, just for reference, because otherwise I have no reference. Like, we don't have to have a big conversation around it, but just for a frame of reference for me, I would appreciate having that as part of the report. Thanks.
Yeah, okay.
One last word.
Go ahead.
And I think you mentioned it, of course. Things such as the bicycle morning mount that aren't really parks, and then they're almost us, but we contribute to those things. Because
I think that falls on the, if I may, I think that falls on the regional significant versus the not. We do need to have that discussion of, in order to know where the boundary is, we need to know what is regionally significant and what is not.
That's right.
Maybe I'm not using Joe used to have it. Is that the right term?
No.
Is that what we were using?
Well, when the bike club comes to us,
It's on the tip, I'm not sure what the right word is, too.
when the bike club comes to us and says, well, listen, we'd like so many thousands of dollars, and we have to make a decision as to whether to fund them or not. The two things happen. Number, the amount of the money, how significant it is to as an adjunct, a recreational adjunct, and also what about governance? Or because if we give them $40,000 and they spend it on a big party, that's not really the idea.
No.
So you understand what I mean about having some kind of oversight.
Yeah, it's about understanding the regional significance. Like, some parks they are above and beyond in terms of their impact and their use.
So through the chair to what Director Cunningham is talking about, that's where the prioritization framework is actually beneficial.
Ooh.
So if you have competing projects or multiple groups coming in saying that they have all these different requests, you could create a prioritization framework specific for this commission that then allows you to actually go through a process where you weight those criteria before you're even dealing with a request. And then as those requests come in, the concept is that the prioritization helps sift those top priorities to the top of the list as to where your limited funds might be able to support.
And that's the whole thing, funds unlimited. Take Velvet Rock, for example, you know, just recently. And then on the same token, down in the Salmo area, that they've built trails too there that are, looking rather good, but do need help for extension and maintenance. And, that's not included at any place, but I do know they've asked for money. And that is the amount they've asked for is well beyond the budget that I have as a director for the area.
Okay. Am I missing anyone? Is anyone in the chat hoping to say anything? Okay. I think we have enough clarity there. Do you want to do, just given the substance of the conversation, do you want to do a doodle poll for figuring out stuff, or do you want to try and have a dates discussion?
Yeah, and I think I need to do some looking to see what our ability to gather this information is gonna be. So, and I don't have a perspective on that at the moment. My guess is that the next report, like off the top of my head, my guess is that at our next meeting, we might be able to come back with some findings of the research to actually give you some information, whether it's some of the financial information that Cheryl was talking about, or some other information about just that history that then may help continue to guide what the workshop might look like. But that might be, I'm hoping that that's achievable, because I think that to me is the logical next step.
And thank you. And if I may, maybe by staying out of the government circles, there are more funds available. The trail I was talking about, the Salmo one, I think got $120,000 2 years ago from the trust, because they're not you know what I'm saying. So maybe those are some of the things we need to look at too.
Well, our next meeting is June 10th. I do think we need to have this workshop before we get into August. We need to get to a decision point before we get to an election, or at least I would struggle if we expand the scope into, because we're starting to talk about like all kinds of contributions, all kinds of prioritization. As much as I think it's super valid that regional directors are concerned about what the controls are for financial contributions into partner parks that are within the jurisdiction of the cities. I know on the inverse side and the Nelson side, there's also how do you control the scope and breadth of the park's contributions, given that, city taxpayers contribute. I know we've all heard this before, but contribute the most into this particular service. What are the controls on the other side? And so, I would like to have this workshop before we get into our next meeting. So I'd like us to do a doodle poll after this meeting. That just gets us to an agreed upon date, so that if we were having some decision making points, we could have it either in June or at the next meeting after that.
Do we have something in May? Is that what you're saying?
June 10th is the next parks meeting. Yeah.
So do we have one before that? Or do we need?
Well, the workshop would be its own meeting.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, so I was just saying, like, as opposed to having more information to scope out a workshop, come to the June meeting, and then another process of figuring out when the actual workshop is happening, I think we need to have this workshop before June 10th. And then it will just, I think some of the stuff will have to get flagged for next actions for future work if it goes beyond our capacity to pull it together.
Yeah, and through the chair, really, to me, it sounds like one of the most significant pieces is the research component. People want to understand how we got here, and I totally get that it's specific to the municipal request component. And if we struggle with getting that in time, that's my only concern.
I think we're gonna go into it, and it's gonna flag more things, and that's gonna spawn more work, so I think we just make that commitment, we're gonna get together, so we'll do a doodle poll after this. We'll settle it on some time that works for everybody, and I think from what I'm hearing, there will be work, it will spawn from there anyway. And we'll continue to flush it out until the water runs clear. Awkward?
That ain't ever gonna happen. Just all the conversations that have happened at this table, that's never gonna happen. But I do wanna just clarify for staff.
Clearer.
Clear, huh? Oh, make it clearer that may happen. But I do want to clarify for staff. Staff is not bringing recommendations. They're just bringing. Okay, because for them to bring recommendations is in my humble opinion, is a waste of time after sitting around this table. And he could totally verify that it absolutely, because there's been lots of recommendations and it's just kind of gone every which way. So I just wanted to clarify that you're not wasting time doing that. Thank you.
I hear you. That's right. Okay. We have enough direction. I'm going to move us along. Let's take us to this conversation of another regionally significant park, Hagen Beach, and its improvement plan.
So through the chair, I can take this one. Mark is away this week. So in this report, he just wanted to provide a bit of an update on where things are at with TAGM. So as you know, there is we introduced an initial concept plan back in November. Hard to believe it was back in November already. And to talk about some potential ways that the parking lot or parking improvement options could be presented. And of course, work has continued along since then. So some of the actions that have been completed to date include the initial concept of it's circulated. All of you have seen those that initial draft, and your comments have been collected. We've circulated the initial design concept to tech as well for their comments. We've issued a contract to Maze Environment for an ecological overview assessment of the lands. Costing requested from the landscape architect. We've requested costing from the landscape architect for hypothetical phasing of the parking lot. And we're doing some drone work, which is being completed by our GIS department to inform assessments and further concept plan development. So some of it can feel like there's not a lot going on, but in actual fact, this is all of the information you need to collect in order to continue to refine and support those concept plans as they continue to evolve. So in the next phase of our work, we're continuing to advance that initial site analysis, do a regulatory review and initial stakeholder engagement consultation to inform the plans and overall project feasibility and timing. So some of these things include a hypothetical concept plan plans are intended to facilitate that discussion. So continuing to refine those based on comments that we've received. Staff will continue dialogue and engagement with tech as the landowner. So that's starting in April and will continue for the foreseeable future. Staff are also arranging for an internal meeting with the directors to discuss their initial feedback, hopefully in May or June. That may come back at the next June meeting. I'm not sure how that timing might work. The ecological overview assessment is expected to be completed in fall of this year. And then in the fall of 2026, the hope is to develop a project plan, including options for project phasing and public consultation to be brought to this committee for consideration. And so that was just an information report for everyone's benefit on that project, just to kind of keep it front and center.
Great. Graham, I see you in the chat. Would you start us off?
I will, thank you. So through the chair, and I guess Trish would not, oh no, she was. I did send an email a while ago, when was it? In February, asking for an option 3, because I've had a chance now to talk with some residents that use the park. And, I understand the thought, we need a whole park redesign. But when we started this project, and when I supported a community works grant for the project, the idea was that we were going to expand the parking lot. And it's my understanding from the folks that I've spoken to, like, they are happy with the park. The issue that we're trying to solve, or the problem that we're trying to solve, is the parking that flows out onto the road when it's busy, and the safety considerations around little kids being excited going to the beach and running across a busy road, and the potential for I've been having conversations with the RCMP. We were trying to put up no parking signs on one side of the road. Like, this is a real hazard. So this, to my mind, when I came on as an area director, the RDCK had acquired the land between the parking lot and the road. And my priority was to get this parking lot expanded, and it's turned into this bigger project. So like, I am hoping here before we move further that we have an option 3, because the plans that we have been presented with so far are going to take a long time and cost a ton of money that none of us have, and the province is now pulling back on funding. Like, I got the idea in the start, oh, it could be a shovel ready project, kind of like when COVID was ending and there was a restart projects and there was all that money for it. And if you had a shovel ready project, maybe this would be something. But like, I just don't see that this redesigning the whole park as being a priority. And I really think we need to focus on the parking lot. And I hope we sort of slam the brakes on what we're doing here and we just go back to expanding the parking lot. And I would maybe through the staff ask like Kerry what his thoughts are on this idea. Because I know Kerry's in touch with people every day too that are using the park.
Well, I mean, through the chair, I mean, I think, getting the parking is an important aspect of that. I think it has been similar to Crescent Valley Beach when we had that issue and we're able to, not necessarily solve all the parking problem all the time, but, we definitely were able to do it for about 90% of the time. I mean, I think at this point, we kind of have to go through the process it's been given out to the directors and really waiting to hear back from you guys in your statements to the next meeting, really on that point, right? I mean, I do talk to a lot of people and I've always heard more beach, but that's, again, I think going through the concept designed to, to the directors, really, it's your direction that we'll move forward with, right?
Okay, thanks, Eric. I will say, just reflecting something I heard from Mark last time, and I hear you on the like, what are those short-term pieces that we have clarity on that we know we can move forward on soon, which is maybe something that deals with 80 or 90% of the problems instead of all the problem. But having some of that clarity to know where you're going long-term informs, which trees might be removed or not. They're going to take another 40 years to come back in anyway. You don't want to just maximize all parking all the way because that might not be what your plan is long-term. But I think what I'm hearing is how can we identify those things we have certainty of that we know we're going to be putting parking stalls in and we can just start moving towards that. And what are those things in those areas where there's less clarity of that's its end state. And so that we still need to have the public have their say and have their input and contribute to a longer vision, which will in the long term provide that clarity to implement as grant funding comes available over the span of a decade or two. But I think we've heard that direction. Craig, see you.
Yeah, through the chair to Director Graham, and just for clarification, option 3, was that just the parking lot? Was that what you were looking for versus the 2 cons? So we heard that at the last meeting and we went back to the consultant through project manager and we do have 2 concepts for the third option for just the parking lot. I think the conversation about the direction and the layout and configuration of that parking lot is part of that. But right now I'm looking at, as per the 2 concepts for the overall park plan, also looking at a more concise plan for the parking lot in 2 options, and we'll bring that forward at the right time. I think we still have a conversation about engagement and how we get feedback from the community and other stakeholders and partners on what this will be. But right now the parking lot budget is similar to what we had from SNT. It's about $1 million at I think it's a class C estimate. And so we do have that. We just didn't present that as part of this presentation. It's just a very high level conversation right now. But to answer your question, we do have that parking lot concept options to consider.
Okay. So this is for information at this point. So we'll continue to advance this. And is there any follow-up questions as we don't see any. Okay, thank you. That takes us to public time. Is there anyone from the member of the public who would like to ask any questions? Public observer? I think they're here to make sure that these meetings are available to the public, so I don't think there's a question there, but thank you so much for recording and putting this up on YouTube. That takes us to our next meeting, which will be June 10th at 9 a.m. And we will circulate and ask for a doodle poll to try and find that initial workshop time before then. And if there's nothing else that we need to discuss, I will move that we adjourn this meeting.
So
Okay. Done and done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Everybody. Thanks for coming.
Recording stopped.
The garage, babe, sorry.